A very good morning to you all. On behalf of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan Bengaluru and ISKCON, we are starting the third day's deliberations in this unique 6-day conference on Upanishads. Let us commence the third day's deliberations with Vedic chanting. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Shanna Mitra Shamvarunah Shanna Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indra Brahaspatihi Shanna Vishnurukramah Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Rutam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tadvaktaramavatu Avatu Mam Avatu Bhaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karne Vishrunuyama Deva Bhadram Pashyema Kshabir Yajatra Sthirairangai Stushtabagam Sastanubihi Vyashema Deva Hitam Yadayuhu Swastina Indra Vruddhashrava Swastina Pusha Vishvaveda Swastina Starksho Arishtanemihi Swastino Bruhaspatir Dadatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tachayora Vranimahe Gatam Yajnaya Gatam Yajnapataye Daive Swastirastunah Swastirmanushebhyah Urdvanjigata Veshajam Shanno Astu Dvipade Shanchatushpade. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. May I now request the scholar speakers who have assembled here from various parts of our glorious country to shed light on different aspects of Upanishads, to throw light on the respective topics in which they have expertise. To start with, may I now request Professor Krishna Sharma of Guntur to kindly come on to the stage, please. Professor Krishna Sharma was born at Guntur, Andhra Pradesh in 1934. He went to school and college at Machilipatnam, Rajahmundry and Guntur. Post-graduation he did at Andhra University, Visakhapatnam. 2 years in local colleges, then joined Department of English, Andhra University as lecturer in 1958. He obtained his PhD in 1967 for his work on the plays of Christopher Fry. Then he went to Guntur along with the Andhra University Postgraduate Center in 1967. He became professor under UGC in 1983 and retired in 1994. He has so far published 6 books. He has edited 6 books, published papers in national and international journals. He has reviewed books for Journal of Indian Writing in English, and he is an authority on Aurobindo. With these few words, I request Professor Krishna Sharma to throw light on Aurobindo's philosophy on Upanishads as the basis of Savitri. Over to Professor Krishna Sharma.
Good morning to all. I do not know if I can throw light on Aurobindo, but there is so much of light on me. Sri Aurobindo's Savitri is a complex poem as it is based on metaphysics and yoga. When I had to teach the first canto of the poem for the MA students, I struggled to comprehend the background in order to communicate the background to them. I also wrote an exegesis of the canto along with a brief survey of the poetic and philosophical background of the poem. This was in 1972. I brought out an enlarged edition of the same book in 2011 to cover the entire first book of Savitri, comprising 5 cantos. A former teacher of mine, going through the draft, suggested that I add an appendix on Advaita and Sri Aurobindo. I tried to teach myself something about Advaita. First of all, I read Sri Shankara's Viveka Chudamani, among other books. But one crucial question which continued to bother me was the dichotomy of Brahman into the individual and the universal self, necessitating a re-identification or re-merger. Why did it have to break up in the first instance? What followed later, once you accept the dichotomy, what followed later of the aspiration and ascent of the individual self, or the recognition of Maya and its rejection, leading to a realization, was not too difficult to understand. I was approaching the problem with my mind, and apparently that would not do. One Advaitin, Sadhu Om, writing in the Mountain Path, says that so long as the mind retains a separate identity of its own, it cannot see the Absolute. Sri Aurobindo himself says that the Absolute is above causality and logic, and to question the Absolute's action is absurd. Thus admonished, I was content to approach it as an act of faith, though I was lacking in faith. The divine, in his loneliness, wished for company and created Prakriti, and through her brought out the entire creation. The individual self, fallen, lost in the science, ignorance, and mortality, is a drop out of the ocean. When it is merged back, it is there and not there, being now as big as the ocean itself. This fallen self, caught in the trap of mortality, desires for upliftment. Through yoga, it is possible for the soul to rise to a level where, helped by the descending supermind, it can reach the realms of the divine. Sri Aurobindo saw the tale of Savitri Satyavan as symbolizing this double movement. This double movement of ascent and descent. Satyavan, the aspiring soul, is helped by Savitri, the descending illumination, to overcome mortality. But he found the tale, Sri Aurobindo found the tale to be basically illustrating the Upanishadic tenets. Sri Aurobindo went to the Vedas and the Upanishads quite early in his career as a yogi and writer. He opined that some of them belonged to an earlier period than the rest, and that the Isha-Upanishad is one of the earliest and perhaps the simplest of them. It talks about the all-pervasive nature of the divine principle. Ishavasyavidam sarvam. Sri Aurobindo translates this and some other Upanishads and writes an exhaustive commentary on them. Basic to Isha-Upanishad is the idea that one spirit inhabits the universe and that the universe is not different from the spirit. Man could enjoy the effects thereof through giving up desire, but still he has the freedom for a physical life. The multiplicity one sees and the one spirit are the same Brahman, and the fulfillment of the rule of life is found in the experience of unity by which man identifies himself with the cosmic and the transcendent self. The polarity of the transcendent one and the manifest multiplicity, being and becoming, are all reconciled through realization, which is moksha, not a nirvana of non-being, but an existence in delight that is transcendental. This is according to Aurobindo. Though time, space and cause are its characteristics, the universe was not the result of causality, blind chance, or a fixed fate, but of a plan of the Lord. This, said Sri Aurobindo, could not be comprehended by scientific logic because it transcends human intelligence. Yoga is the one method the ancient Indians had discovered to be able to realize the transcendent self of things was also the self of living beings. And that the transcendent self in the individual man is as complete because identically the same as the transcendent self, leading to the great tenets Soham and Aham Brahmasmi. Three approaches were taken to analyze and comprehend these tenets in the context of the presence of nature's multiplicity: monism, dualism, and a dualo-monistic approach, or monism with a difference. Intellection could not reconcile the dichotomy in the face of the Upanishadic statements Ekameva Advaitam, one without a second, and Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, all that is here is Brahman. Sri Shankara maintained that the visible universe is Maya, and Shankara declared that only through rejecting Maya and the world that is the result of Maya that one could reach realization. Relying too much on thought, Sri Shankara misread the Upanishad according to Aurobindo and missed the point that Parabrahman and Maya are both aspects of Brahman. That Parabrahman is the luminous shadow of the Absolute projected in itself by itself, and that Maya is the dark shadow projected by the Absolute in the Parabrahman. Madhvacharya accepts the duality of the individual self and the Brahman and says that through surrender the individual could find samipya because it postulates a distinction between the divine and the human. It has come to be known as Dvaita or dualistic theory. Shankara rejected Prakriti as illusion and said that the self and the transcendent self are one and the same, and that illusion or Maya is eliminated when avidya, that the rope is a serpent, is destroyed through the knowledge that the rope is but a rope. Then the scales of illusion fall and the self stands in identity with the Brahman. This is non-dualism, Advaita, the unacceptability of anything other than the one as truth. It is said that between the two Upanishadic tenets, Ekameva Advitiyam and Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, Sri Shankara accepted the former in total and rejected the second, thus warping the reality as he saw it. This warping again is Aurobindo's term. The third path, Vishishtadvaita, is what Sri Ramanuja stood by. It accepts the oneness of Brahman and the individual self and seeks Kaivalya through Sayujya, through surrender. According to him, according to Sri Aurobindo, the energy of the divine self is Maya. It is the other side of the coin. When one talks of the rising sun and the setting sun, one is contradicting reality, for there is neither sunrise nor sunset. The sun is not moving at all. The rotation of the sun round the earth is as much real as it is an illusion. This is what is meant by Maya, says Sri Aurobindo. It is a fundamental fact, undeniable. So it is when the eternal, freer and infinite, in essence, deliberately binds himself as he is caught up in the trap of Prakriti. Avidya is one of the features of Maya. It is something that makes one imagine a thing to be real, which is not real. The movement of the sun round the earth, the dream of a dreamer, the belief that man walks upright on the earth, the juggler's rope trick, as well as action in a drama, are all known to our scientific mind as being unreal. But we act upon the images which our senses accept and take them as real for the time being. Dr. Samuel Johnson, a noted critic scholar of the 18th century, talks about the illusion created by the action that is taking place on a stage and says, "The truth is that the spectators are always in their senses and know from the first act to the last that the stage is only a stage, that the players are only players. The audiences, in a temporary mood of self-delusion, are prepared to believe the action before their eyes as true." Sri Aurobindo puts it as a working compromise. The manifestation of avidya in human consciousness can be illustrated by the way a poet like Shakespeare worked. Othello, Desdemona, and Iago are fabrications in the mind of the poet and have no reality. But they are real to each other within the bounds of the drama. And they are all real to any and every consciousness which can for a time abstract itself from this world and enter the world of Shakespeare. Moreover, they do not entirely leave us, but leave a lasting impression on us. This is the astonishing power of poetry. Shakespeare, whether the scholars agree that he wrote the plays attributed to him or not, and Homer, who perhaps never lived or was only an assortment of poets, collectively called Homer, are the source for the characters Othello, Desdemona, Hamlet, Julius Caesar, Hector, Achilles, Ulysses, etc. The creators of these characters are immanent in these children of illusion. Yet their creators, who gave them forth their self and reality, without whom they cannot exist, are unaffected by their actions, their crimes, their virtues. They are free. So too the Lord is free even while he is immanent in his manifestations and in Maya. Poetic imagination is outside purpose because she is an inherent energy of Ananda, the bliss of existence or will to live. And beyond this delight in existence, she has no reason for being. The purpose of Maya, insofar as she has purpose, is to find more perfect surroundings or more exquisite means or a grander scope for the pleasures of conscious phenomenal existence. Sri Aurobindo's understanding of the Upanishads was owing to his yogic experience. Like the ancient seers, he too had risen to higher planes of consciousness through yoga and could see things for what they were. It is with this assurance that perhaps he rejected Sri Shankara's explanation of Isavasyamidam Jagat, Isam Sarvam, or Shankara translated it as truth or Ishvara clothed or enveloped by Prakriti or Maya or appearance. and said that through shattering the outer covering, discarding the appearance, alone could one reach the core of truths. The shutting out of the world is the stepping stone to liberation. But says Aurobindo translates it to mean that the world is a dwelling place. Vastyam. Clothing, dwelling. It's a dwelling place for the informing and governing spirit. With this fundamental shift in the standpoint, Sri Aurobindo could reach to a synthetic conclusion, so that the second line of the sloka, Tena Chaktena Bhunjita, helps him to talk about bliss and divine delight and the mortal's right to enjoyment. As the Upanishads had spelt out the devolution, involvement, the descent of the spirit, the supreme into manifest universe, Sri Aurobindo proceeds to explain how man could evolve, ascend back into the divine being and experience bliss. He sees existence as two hemispheres consisting of 8 levels: divine existence, conscious force, bliss and supermind, and then in the higher one, and matter, life, psyche and mind in the lower one. A mortal can in no manner describe or explain Brahman with his mind, because it is limited in its capacity. For mind is that which does not know, which tries to know and which never knows except as in a dark glass, in a glass darkly. But the Upanishad assures that it is only through constant preparation that the lower mind would be able to rise beyond itself. The means for the attainment of the highest knowledge is the constant preparation of the mind by the admission into it of a working higher than itself, until the mind is capable of giving itself up to the supramental action which exceeds it and which will finally replace it. Since mind is the only instrument with which one could approach the question, and since mind is very nearly the lowest level of consciousness, or chit, that is the divine, Sri Aurobindo focuses attention on the various levels of mind and the way one could work through these levels to rise to higher planes of consciousness. He talks about 5 levels of mind: higher mind, higher mind, illumined mind or intuition, overmind and supermind, and describes how through yoga one could train oneself to rise into the higher planes of consciousness. But as he describes in the short poem Thought the Paraclete, a stage comes where the yogi cannot rise beyond the overmind. There is need here for intervention of the higher power, Karavalambanam as you call it, to enable the aspirant to rise beyond the limitations. In the hemisphere, he talks about the lower mind, that is overmind, and the higher mind, that is supermind, are juxtaposed, lying side by side, but separated by a thin veil. When the veil is torn or pierced, the power and illumination of the supermind would flow down and divinize the lower being. Nothing then would come between the self and Brahman, and the self would progress forward into realizing its oneness with the eternal. This is the process of bridging our earthhood and heavenhood, as Sri Aurobindo describes in another short poem, Rose of God. But what is of paramount importance to Sri Aurobindo, and what is spelled out in such clear terms in the Upanishad, is not that an individual could escape from the trap of lower nature, but that he should return to the field of action after realization. Bhunjita. The Upanishad has said. But his return to the lower plane of existence is not to be at the expense of his own self. One must return, after full evolution, back to the field of action to help divinize the environment, which in its turn would help other individuals to fully evolve. The final result would then be wonderful. A life of Gnostic beings carrying the evolution to a higher supramental status might fitly be characterized as a divine life. For it would be a life in the divine, a life of the beginnings of a spiritual divine light and power and joy manifested in material nature. This is the life divine that characterizes Sri Aurobindo's philosophy. And he gave the title Life Divine to his prose treatise of his philosophy, as distinct from the other thinkers of the past. Having thus arrived at a synthesized conclusion over the relationship between the individual and the supreme, Sri Aurobindo sought to present it in less obscure terms, translate the metaphysical abstractions into poetic verities, if possible. In this process, he found the story of Savitri as rich in possibilities, eminently suitable in addition to being amenable to symbolic interpretation. He found Vyasa using it already as a moral metaphor in the Mahabharata. It might have been the tale of a young wife accompanying her husband into the forest, faced with a crisis when he was stung by a serpent. Without losing her head, she would have used some herbs to antidote the venom and save her husband. Returning to the village, she might have been praised by the community as a life giver, as one who fought death and pulled her husband out of the jaws of death, etc. Vyasa might have found in this tale a suitable vehicle to present an ideal wife devoted to her husband, saving him to save her own marital status and thus emerging as a pativrata. Already the names of the major actors in the tale, Ashwapati, Satyavan and Savitri, are replete with Vedic significance of life force, of aspiration and of solar illumination. The loss of sight under the kingdom by Satyavan's father, Jumatsena, falls easily into the pattern of significances. Ignorance, blindness is the characteristic of a human being, mortal. So Sri Aurobindo worked out the scheme of the tale to suit the process of descent and ascent, the two movements that are cardinal to his philosophy. Ashwapati is already God-word, an emancipated spirit, as it were, and is seeking to help the helpless mankind caught in ignorance and mortality to be able to experience the fruits of divinization. A yogi, he rises to higher planes of a consciousness, and the poem details his experiences as he rises from stage to stage, till he is in the presence of the ineffable. His silent prayers reach over to the Mother, the divine creatrix. Pack with eternal might one human hour, and with one gesture change the all future time. Let a great word be spoken from the height, and one great act unlock the doors of fate, he says. In answer, she declares, a seed shall be sown in death's tremendous hour. A branch of heaven transplant to human soil. Nature shall overleap her mortal step. Fate shall be changed by an unchanging will. Savitri is that branch of heaven, transplanted to human soil. She grows in full awareness of her mission on earth, and when the time comes for her marriage, she goes out in search of the man or the mate destined for her. She meets the Satyavan in the forest and knows at once that it is he. I know that thou, and only thou, art he. She marries him with the full knowledge that he would die 12 months after the wedding. She moves to the forest hermitage, where she does her own tapasya, strengthening herself and equipping herself for the battle royal ahead of her. The 12 months fly fast, while a dark foreknowledge separated her from all of whom she was the star and stay. And on the fateful day, her soul arose confronting time and fate. Immobile in herself, she gathered force. For this was the day when Satyavan must die. In the last section of the poem, we are treated to an exhilarating description of the struggle between Savitri, the spiritual higher, and agent, the divine, and death, the negator, the helpless mechanical lord of dharma, the dharma of lower being, of Prakriti. Through the length of the poem, we notice the finesse with which the poet wove the various points of the tale, with the philosophical progression of the indwelling, fallen, boundless self, seeking out, rising through regions of spirit, and experiencing various aspects of existence through yoga. And all this concentrated in Satyavan's ascent being voided by the inevitability of death because he is immortal. And Savitri coming down as a spiritual, supramental illumination and helping this death-bound mortal rise beyond into the transcendental, enacting a kind of Gajendra Moksha, as it were. It's fascinating to note the way Sri Aurobindo worked out the parallel between the individual soul reaching the stage of realization and Satyavan transcending death. And to round off the tale, as also to give expression to his own particular philosophy of synthesis, Sri Aurobindo makes Savitri reject the Supreme's invitation to return to divine felicity. Now that her mission is accomplished on the earth, she argues that her mission is not yet finished. She has work to do. Earth shall be my work chamber and my house, my garden of life, to plant a seed divine. The Supreme readily grants her demand. Sri Aurobindo thus posits his synthetic philosophy, the thesis of transcendence, which is very close to the teachings of the Gita, probably the most explicit exposition of the meaning of transcendental non-dualism. The concept of Purushottama, the integral knowledge, makes one capable of liberated action. At the climax of the thesis comes the negation of negation and of death to lead to the life divine. The supreme significance of the poem Savitri is brought out in Savitri's determination to make the earth her work chamber and work towards transforming the earthly life to life divine. Thank you.
Before we extend our heartfelt thanks to the learned speaker, may I now invite the second and third speakers to the dais, please. So far we have heard a scintillating paper on Aurobindo's interpretation of Upanishads in the light of Savitri. And I think nobody can do better justice to this than Professor Krishna Sharma, who has got that wide experience, vast exposure, and at the same time, the kind of bird's eye view which permeates into the philosophies of both East and West, because Aurobindo was a master of East as well as West, being a professor of English at Sayajirao Baroda University, Gaikwad, at the same time a freedom fighter and also a poet of impeccable eminence. That has been done excellently well by Professor Krishna Sharma, wherein he touched upon the concept of Upanishads according to Aurobindo in the light of Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, taking the two quintessential aspects of avidya and maya, which happens to be the crux of Indian philosophy, around which all the philosophers rotate from times immemorial. Whether maya and avidya are one and the same or different has been a question which has searched the Indian philosophers from times immemorial. That quintessential aspect he brought out in his own inimitable way in his lecture of 30 minutes. He also talked about the concept of world as a drama. All the world is a stage where men and women are merely players. He quoted from As You Like It of Shakespeare, and he also touched upon the Nataka Deepa, which occurs as one of the important chapters of Panchadashi written by Vidyaranya. Therefore, without any prejudice, with an open-mindedness, and with an integrated, if Arvindo talked about integral yoga, here Krishna Sharma has done integration between West and the East, and for which we are highly thankful to him, who could be present here by postponing his US visit. He should have left for US yesterday. Only for the sake of this seminar, he postponed that visit, and maybe now request to honor Professor Krishna Sharma, Shri D.R. Patil, MLA from Gadag, who has come all the way from Gadag to this important function, and being a very close associate of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan and its dynamic and dedicated director Suresh, he has come all the way from Gadag, and we are really grateful to you, sir, for your presence. Now Shri Patil will be felicitating Professor Krishna Sharma. Now Suresh is telling me that he is trying to revive the Kumaravyasa and his contribution to our great tradition from Gadag, and that he has been instrumental, and he has taken the important work on his own personal shoulders, and he is carrying it out for the sake of posterity. This is where we see values, you see, how values have been passed on from generation to generation in all its pristine purity, as Radhakrishnan would have it in his Hindu view of life. We kindly request Shri Patil to be on the stage, please. Now, the dynamic and dedicated director of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, Shri H.N. Suresh, will be offering our token of gratitude and appreciation for the yeoman service being put on by Shri Patil from Gadag. Thank you, sir, for your presence, and I also thank Shri Suresh for this timely act. And now we pass on to the second paper of this morning. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan's interpretation of Upanishads by Shri Srivatsa is Professor of Sanskrit at BMS College of Engineering, and she has done great work in the course of Sanskrit. She passed her MA in Sanskrit from Sri Venkateshwara University, Tirupati, with a specialization in post-graduation of Sahitya First Class. She passed MPhil examination from Bengaluru University with a first class, a study of Mandara Maranda Champu. She was awarded PhD from Bengaluru University for her doctoral thesis on Navarasas in Srimad Ramayana. She has participated and presented papers in a number of national seminars. She was declared the second best orator in the intercollegiate competitions in Sanskrit conducted from Madras University in 1977. She was awarded B. Godamma and Rangacharya Memorial Award for the best paper, Bhavabhuti's Ethical Teachings, presented in the National Seminar on Ethics for Modern Man, conducted by Karnataka University, Dharwad in 2005. She was awarded the Young Scholar Award, instituted by Shanvi Savarkar and Sons, for a paper, Way of Life Depicted in the Teachings of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, in the National Seminar on Thesis of Life, conducted in Sirsi. She was conferred the title Jyotirvidya Pravina by the Indian Council of Astrological Sciences, Chennai. She presented a paper, Sita, Her Glorious Personality, at the National Seminar held under the auspices of Anantacharya Indological Institute, Mumbai. We also invite our next illustrious speaker, Sri Sujay Chaitanya, and he will be speaking to us on Swami Chinmayanandaji's interpretation of Upanishads. We welcome you, sir, on behalf of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan and also ISKCON. Over to Dr. Sri Srivatsa.
Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Namas Sadase, Sadasaspataye. The very fact that Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan and ISKCON have come together has already conveyed the message of the Upanishads. Bharatiya Vidya has led to Krishna consciousness. Being a student of Alankara Shastra, Vedanta was certainly not my cup of tea. As Dr. N.S. Anantarangachar, a great scholar and the author of 3 volumes of Principal Upanishads, would always say jokingly, if you do not understand anything, that is Vedanta. So therefore, however, I am grateful to the authorities, especially to Dr. S. Ranganath, who has given a detailed biodata, though he said it was brief, and to Sri Ashok Kumar of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, whom I have known only over the phone, for having given me this opportunity to stand before you and present my paper on Radhakrishnan's interpretation of the Upanishads. The truth suggested in the Vedas is developed in the Upanishads. We find in the seer of the Upanishads an utter fidelity to every layer and shade of truth as they saw it. They affirm that there is a central reality, the one without a second, who is all that is beyond and all that is. These are the words of Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, former President of India, was one of the most erudite of Hindu scholars of all times. He was at once a philosopher, author, statesman, and educationalist, and India celebrates his birthday, the 5th of September, as Teachers' Day every year. He was awarded the Bharat Ratna in 1954. He is among the brightest luminaries of Hindu philosophy and a champion of Sanatana Dharma. Being a clear and deep thinker and an acute critic, he has undertaken the task of explaining the spirit of the Upanishads to the lay audience. This paper mainly aims to present, though not exhaustively, the religion, psychology, and ethics of the Upanishads, which are more relevant to the present day, as referred to by S. Radhakrishnan. However, a mention is also made on his say on the major aspects of the Upanishads, Brahman and Atman, intellect and intuition, creation, karma and future life, and moksha. First, coming to Brahman and Atman, the two, the objective and the subjective, the Brahman and the Atman, the cosmic and the physical principles are looked upon as identical. Brahman is Atman. Dr. Radhakrishnan quotes the Taittiriya Upanishad, Sa yaschayam purushe yaschasav aditye sa ekaha. He who is the Brahman in man is man, and who is that in the sun? Those are one. This identity of subject and object is not a vague hypothesis, but the necessary implication of all relevant thinking, feeling, and willing. From the beginning of reflection, this oneness of subject and object, the existence of one central reality pervading and embracing all, has been the doctrine of the devout. The different conceptions of Brahman correspond to the different ideas of the Atman and vice versa. The highest Brahman, which is Ananda, is just Atman as realized in the 4th or Turiya state. There the object and subject are one. The seer, the seeing eye, and the object seeing merge together in one whole. When we identify the Atman with the self-conscious individual, Brahman is viewed as the self-conscious Ishvara. The Brahman of the Upanishad is the fullest and the most real thing. The word Brahman means growth and is suggestive of life, motion and progress, and not death, stillness and stagnation. The ultimate reality is described as Sat Chit and Ananda, existence, consciousness and bliss. Thus, ultimate reality is the living unity of essence and existence of the ideal and real, of knowledge, love and beauty. Intellect and intuition. The ideal of the intellect is to find unity which discerns the subject and the object. If such a unity exists, then that is the working principle of logic and life. Dr. Radhakrishnan quotes from the Taittiriya Upanishad, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha, from which all speech with the mind turns away, unable to reach it, and says that the intellect does not have the capacity to grasp the whole, the real. Atman cannot be non-existent just because it cannot be objectively represented. The intellect works with the categories of space, time, cause and force. Hence there are stalemates and contradictions. He says that the intellect becomes bankrupt when questions about the ultimate arise. The self-existing Brahman is independent of time, space and cause. According to the Upanishads, there is a higher power which enables us to grasp the central spiritual reality. Spiritual things have to be spiritually comprehended. Man has the faculty of divine insight or mystic intuition. By this intuitive realization, Dr. Radhakrishnan says, the problems raised by the intellect solve themselves, quoting the Mundaka-upanishad. Jnana prasadena vishuddha sattvaha tatastutam pashyate nishkalam dhyayamanaha. The Upanishads ask us to lay aside our pride of intellect and approach facts with the fresh outlook of a child. Tasmat brahmanaha pandityam nirvidya balyena tishtaset. Brihadaranyaka. The highest truths are to be felt by the simple and pure-minded and not proved to the sophisticated intellect. The spiritual vision relieves us from all passion and suffering. The soul in its exaltation feels itself to be one with what it sees. The Upanishads do not maintain that intellect is a useless guide. By insisting more on intuition than on thought, on ananda more than on vijnana, the Upanishads seem to support non-dualism. Creation. The Upanishads are dissatisfied with materialistic and vitalist theories of evolution. Matter cannot develop life or consciousness. Quoting the Aitareya Aranyaka that Ananda is the beginning and the end of the world, the cause as well as the effect, the root as well as the shoot of the universe, Dr. S. Radhakrishnan says that the efficient and the final causes are one. The matter with which the process of evolution starts is not an independent entity. It has hidden in it the highest Ananda. The course of the development is from the potential to the actual. The concept of an omnipotent mechanic fashioning pre-existing matter into the universe is not acceptable to the Upanishads as it would lead to dualism. For the Upanishads, both form and matter, the ever-active consciousness and the passive non-consciousness are aspects of a single reality. Sa ya esho anima aitadatmyam idam sarvam tat satyam sa atma tattvamasi shvetaketo iti. The whole world is conceived as possessing an identity of purpose as well as a common substratum of change. The Upanishads bring out the great truth of the oneness of the world. Brahman is the soul and the whole explanation of the world, its material and efficient cause. The entities of the world are knots in the rope of development which begins with matter and ends in Ananda. The theory of emanation is also suggested. Here the bringing of a product into existence does not affect the source of the product. The light coming from the sun leaves the sun unchanged. This seems to justify the later theory that the individual is a mere abhasa or appearance of Brahman. The spinning of the web by the spider, the bearing of the child by the mother, the production of notes from the musical instruments are some of the metaphors quoted to bring out the intimate relationship between cause and the effect. It is the tadatmya or oneness between Brahman and the world that is conveyed in all these. Karma and future life, this is very important. The law of karma is a law of conservation of moral energy. We reap what we sow. The attempt to overleap the law of karma is as futile as the attempt to leap over one's own shadow. Punyo vai punyena karmana bhavati papaha papeneti. A man becomes good by good deeds and bad by bad deeds. The redressal of action makes samsara with birth and death without a beginning or end. The karma theory embraces men and gods, animals and plants. The Upanishads hold that we can be free from karma only by social service. We are subject to bondage as long as we perform selfish work. We reach freedom when we perform disinterested work. Kuruvaniveha karmani jijivishet shatam samaha evam tvayi nanyathosti na karma lipyate nare. While thus you live, there is no way by which karma clings to you. Karma, rightly understood, does not discourage moral effort, does not fetter the mind or chain the will. It only says that every act is the inevitable outcome of the preceding conditions. The law of karma which rules the lower nature of man has nothing to do with the spiritual in him. There is no doctrine that is as valuable in life and conduct as the karma theory. Karma inspires hope for the future and resignation to the past. Conceptions of future life can be found in the Upanishads. It is the idea of rebirth that is the prominent one. It is said that the soul, after it has journeyed to heaven in a radiant form after the burning of the corpse, then returns immediately through the three regions to a new existence. The undelivered soul is subject to the law of birth and death. It has to work out its destiny by lives on earth. While true immortality is for the liberated, survival in term is for the bound. There is a prayer in the Chandogya Upanishad, Shetam adatkam adatkam shetam linduma bhigam. May I never go to the white, toothless, devouring abode. The kind of bird depends on the nature of the work done. The Upanishad theory of future life had to reckon with the old Vedic doctrine of rewards and punishments in another world. They mention the two paths by which a departed soul proceeds to enjoy the fruits of its karma done in his lifetime on earth. The freed man who realizes his identity with the Brahman need not go anywhere for his salvation. Brahmaiva san brahmapyeti, Brihadaranyaka. The thinkers of the Upanishads do not support the materialistic view that the soul is annihilated at death. They have a strong conviction of continuity of life and maintain that there is something that survives bodily death. Moksha, the Upanishadic view is that there is in the highest condition of a disintegration of individuality and giving up of selfish isolation. But it is not a mere nothing or death. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan quotes Mundakopanishad, Yatha nadyaha syandamanaha samudre astam gachanti nama rupe vihaya tatha vidvan nama rupa vimuktaha paratparam purusham upayiti divyam. Just as the flowing rivers disappear in the ocean casting off name and shape, even so the knower, freed from name and shape, attains to the divine person higher than the high. The highest is a state of rapture and ecstasy, a condition of ananda, where the creature as creature is abolished but becomes one with the Creator, or more accurately, realizes his oneness with Him. The liberated condition must be looked upon as the fullest expression of the self. There are passages where the individual is said to become one with the highest. Pranavo dhanuhu sharohi atma brahmatal lakshyam uchyate apramattena vedhavyam sharavat tanmayo bhavet. Mundakopanishad. The syllable Om is the bow, one's self indeed is the arrow. Brahman is spoken of as the target of that. It is to be hit without making a mistake. The Atman becomes one with the Brahman. There are two conflicting accounts running throughout. That is, it is a state of likeness to God and that it is a state of oneness with God. However, almost all Indian thinkers are agreed that moksha is release from birth and death. Union with God is another name for becoming eternal. Religion of the Upanishads. Religion is essentially a matter of life and experience. The Upanishads use the inherited form of religious worship as means for the realization of the Supreme. They prescribe 3 stages in the growth of the religious consciousness, namely Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana. Dr. Radhakrishnan refers to the address of Yajnavalkya to Maitreyi in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Atmava are drashtavyaha shrotavyo mantavyo nididhyasitavyaha Maitreyi. Atmani khalvare drishte shrute mate vijñate idam sarvam viditam. Maitreyi, verily the self is to be seen, to be heard, to be reflected on, to be meditated upon. When verily the self is seen, heard, reflected on and known, and then all this is known. The Upanishad's religion is the feeling of reverence and love for the Great Spirit. Such meditation is spiritualized bhakti. The basis of the doctrine of bhakti is upasana or worship. As Brahman is not described in the early Upanishads in sufficiently personal terms, the later ones look upon the Supreme as personal God who bestows grace. Devotion to the personal God is recommended as a means of attaining spiritual enlightenment. Tapaprabhava deva prasadacha brahmaha shvetashvarotha vidvan atyashamibhyaha paramam pavitram provacha samyak rishi sanghajustam. According to the Upanishads, the Absolute and God are one. It is called the Supreme Brahman to emphasize its transcendence of the finite, its mystery and its all-comprehensiveness. It is called Ishvara to emphasize the personal aspect so necessary for religious devotion. The relation between the two, the absolute Brahman and the personal Ishvara, may be like that of the true Lord to the idol. Shalagrama iva Vishnoho. This is Shankara's commentary to Taittiriya Upanishad. Yet the two are one. Religious worship culminates in the ecstatic life where God and the soul melt into each other. It has to be accepted until the perfect condition is reached. True religion recognizes the immanence of God and is highly mystic. Second last, it's psychology of the Upanishads. There is no systematic psychological analysis in the Upanishads, but the ideas adopted by them can be noted. All indriyas are under the control of the manas, the central organ, whose chief functions are perception and action. The mind is called the chief of the senses. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Manasahi eva pashyati, manasa shrunoti, kamaha sankalpo vichikitsa shraddha shraddha, dhritar adhritar hrir ahrir bhiriti, etat sarvam mana eva. It is with the mind truly that one sees, it is with the mind that one hears. Desire, determination, doubt, faith, lack of faith, steadfastness, lack of steadfastness, shame, intellection, fear, all this is truly the mind. Buddhi or intelligence is higher than manas. The functions of the buddhi are found in the Aitareya Upanishad. Sajnanam, Ajnanam, Vijnanam, Prajnanam, Medha, Drishtar, Dhritar, Matir, Manisha, Jyotihi, Smritihi, Sankalpaha, Krituhu, Asuhu, Kamo, Vashaiti, Sarvani, Evaitani, Prajnanasya Namadheyani Bhavanti. Consciousness, perception, discrimination, intelligence, wisdom, insight, steadfastness, thought, thoughtfulness, impulse, memory, conception, purpose, life, desire, and control. All these indeed are names of intelligence. This analysis cannot stand criticism, but the point to be noted is that there were psychological discussions so early as the period of the Upanishads. The ethics of the Upanishads. The Upanishads insist on the importance of ethical life. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan quotes from the Mundaka Upanishad, Nayam atma balahinena labhyo nacha pramada tapaso vapi alingat etair upayair yatate yastu vidvamsa tasyaisha atma vishate brahmadhama. This self cannot be attained by one without strength, nor through heedlessness, nor through austerity without aim. But he who strives by these means, if he is a knower, this self of his enters the abode of Brahman. It is obvious that the Upanishads have for their ideal the becoming one with God, the realization of the oneness with God. The absolute is the deliberate goal of the finite self. Lower goals, which we create after may satisfy the vital organism or mental desires, but this includes them and transcends them. We have different kinds of pleasures, but the highest is Ananda. The ethics we have in the Upanishads is subsidiary to this goal. Duty is a means to the end of the highest perfection. Morality leads to it. The law of morality is an initiation to become perfect. It is obedience to the eternal reality which constrains our conscious self. This is the meaning of the expression, the duty is the stern daughter of the voice of God. The thinkers reflected a good deal on the problems of ethics. Different ways of attaining the highest are referred to in the Upanishads like Ratitara's truth, Paurushishti's austerity, and Maudgalya's learning. The ideal of ethics is self-realization. Moral conduct is self-realized conduct. For the growth of the soul or realization of the highest, the obstacles and influences must be subdued. The drive of desire has to be checked. When desire seizes the helm, the soul suffers a shipwreck, since it is not the law of man's being. If we do not accept a higher moral law, our life will be one of animal existence, without end or aim. If we make pleasure the end of our pursuits, our life is one of evil, unworthy of man. Dr. Radhakrishnan quotes from the International Journal of Ethics, in a rational life, every course of action, before it is adopted, is brought before the bar of reason, and its capacity to serve the highest end is tested, and if found suitable, adopted by the individual. A life of reason is a life of unselfish devotion to the world. He is a good man who in his life subordinates personal to social ends. If we want to escape from sin, we must escape from selfishness. The Upanishadic morality appears to be individualistic, for its aim is self-realization. The word does not have any exclusive meaning. To realize oneself is to identify oneself with a good that is not his alone. Moral life is a God-centered life, a life of passionate love and enthusiasm for humanity, or seeking the infinite through the finite, and not a mere self-adventure for small ends. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan refers to the Isha Upanishad. Ishavassamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita ma gridha kasya tvidhanam. The Upanishads insist on the inwardness of morality and attach great importance to the motive and conduct. Inner purity is more important than outer conformity. The mind will have to be purified, for it is no use cutting the branches if one leaves the roots intact. The Upanishads require us to look upon the whole world as born of God, as the self of man is. They admit that morality and love are forms of the highest self-realization. The love of the finite has only instrumental value, while love of the external has intrinsic worth. The Upanishads ask us to renounce selfish endeavors, but not all interests. Detachment from self and attachment to God are what the Upanishads demand. Desire as such is not forbidden. It all depends upon the object. The desires for salvation and knowledge are highly commended. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan quotes the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Atha kamayamanaha yo akamo nishkama aptakama na tasya prana utkramanti brahmaivasan brahmapyeti. But the man who does not desire, he who is without desire, who is freed from desire, whose desire is satisfied, whose desire is the self, his breaths do not depart. Being Brahman, he goes to Brahman. We are asked to root out pride, resentment, lust, etc., and not the tender feelings of love, compassion, and sympathy. The Upanishads speak of tapas as means of spiritual realization. But tapas only means the development of soul force, the freeing of the soul from slavery to body, severe thinking or energizing of mind. The Chandogya Upanishad says, Shraddha Tapaha. The Upanishads require us to work but disinterestedly. The righteous man is not he who leaves this world and retires to a cloister, but he who lives in the world and loves the objects of the world, not for their own sake, but for the sake of the infinite they contain, the universal secret that they conceal. Every common duty fulfilled and every individual sacrifice made helps the realization of the self. There is no indication in the Upanishad that we must give up life, mind, intelligence, consciousness, etc. The Upanishads condemn the rites and sacrifices performed with the sole idea of bringing about large returns of outward good either in this world or in the next. They lay stress on the necessary truth. They insist on a life of spirit which combines both jnana and karma. That for which Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan stands, I suppose. To conclude with the quote on the Upanishads by Dr. S. Radhakrishnan himself would indeed be a fitting tribute. If the Upanishads help us to rise above the glamour of the fleshy life, it is because their authors, pure of soul, ever striving towards the divine, reveal to us their pictures of the splendors of the unseen. The Upanishads are respected not because they are a part of Shruti or revealed literature and so hold a reserved position, but because they have inspired generations of Indians with vision and strength by their inexhaustible significance and spiritual power. Indian thought has constantly turned to these scriptures for fresh illumination and spiritual recovery or recommencement, and not in vain. The fire still burns bright on their altars. Their light is for the seeing eye, and their message is for the seeker after truth. Om Tat Sat. Thank you.
On behalf of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan and ISKCON, we deem it a great honor as Dr. Sri Srivatsa has eminently expounded in an exquisite manner the extremely difficult, intricate thought of Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, considered to be one of the greatest scholar, statesmen and philosophers of 20th century, who was the first to make an impeccable impression in Oxford when he was professor at All Souls College, Oxford. And even after 70 years, when we walk in those streets, they recognize, here comes Indian wisdom. That is the impression Radhakrishnan had created in UK as a philosopher, statesman. And as he himself says, one should be an ace to race to get the grace of God Almighty. And that very successfully Dr. Sri Srivatsa has projected in this particular paper, because Radhakrishnan says India has no dearth of philosophers, but hardly we find practitioners. Who is going to practice? Everybody is a preacher here. All preachers, most of them unfortunately are cheaters. So Radhakrishnan says that India is that India. And as successfully Dr. Sri Srivatsa pointed out, Tena Tyaktena Bunjitaha from Ishavasya Upanishad, on which Gandhiji made a remark, even if all the important philosophical sources have been reduced to ashes in India, if the first mantra of Ishavasya survives, India will remain as India, which was ably quoted by Justice Lahote in his inaugural address in the same venue day before yesterday, for which we had a reference here. That's why we say that what is past is future, what is future is past, because my past is in my future is in past, as T.S. Eliot would have it. So from this point of view, we are highly grateful to Dr. Sri Srivatsa for making such a complex thought in such simple words, because Radhakrishnan's style, as one of the great critics, Gnana Chakravarti V. Satyanarayana points out, Hiriyana's style is a chiseled garden, whereas Radhakrishnan's style is a wild jungle. So that jungle has been made to a garden by Dr. Sri Srivatsa. So may we now request our philanthropist and the admirer of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, Sri Pati Sridhara, to kindly come onto the dais and to felicitate Dr. Sri Srivatsa for having given us such a wonderful paper, which will remain for quite some time in our memories, as it is a thing to be remembered and cherished. Pati Sridhara. Vajevir
Dhinama Mitrayatu Ano Divo Brahata Parvatada Saraswati Yajatagantu Yagyam.
May we now request the next speaker, Sri Sujay Chaitanya of Chinmaya Mission, to throw light on Chinmaya's interpretation of Upanishads.
Sahana vavatu Sahanau bhunaktu Sahaviryam karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. My prostrations to all the seekers here. Pujya Gurudev Swami Chinmayanand Ji tirelessly worked for spreading the message of the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures in such a way that even a layman should be able to understand the message. In this regard, he used varieties of anecdotes, day-to-day examples, stories, etc., so that the subtle concepts of Upanishads become very simple to understand. So therefore, today we will discuss the essence of the Upanishads using some of the anecdotes, using some of the day-to-day examples which Puja Gurudev had used. To begin with, I will quote one common example which Puja Gurudev used to use it in his talks. And this example is called the famous movie theater example. What is this movie theater example? All of us, we have experienced when we enter into a movie theater. We settle down in a comfortable place, and as slowly the movie unfolds, what happens? We get absorbed into the movie. Slowly the story unfolds. The characters come into picture, and slowly what happens is, we are so absorbed into the movie that the movie scenes, the movie characters, the movie happenings, the movie time, the movie space start becoming real to us. We become totally identified, absorbed in the movie. And all the setting is made in such a way that this absorption becomes natural. So the whole space is made dark so that you can be cut off from the outer world. The audio is made very clear and loud. The pictures are huge and clear. So slowly what happens is, you forget yourself and you are then now absorbed into the movie. Then what happens? Slowly the movie incidences starts affecting you. Whatever happens in the movie starts happening to you. The ups and downs in the movie starts affecting you. Suppose you get identified with the hero of the movie. When the hero is miserable, you are miserable. When the hero is happy, you are happy. When the hero is anxious, you are anxious. Now what has happened? You have entered into the movie theater as a master, but now you have degraded yourself to the status of a slave. Slave because now you don't have control over your own mind. Your mind state is decided not by you, but by the happenings of the movie. The storyteller of the movie decides your mind, the state of the mind. What a pathetic condition it is. You pay money as a master, come in, and now you become a slave. Isn't it so? What is the mistake which we have done, because of which we have degraded to the status of a slave in the movie theater? The mistake we have done is twofold. Number one, I allowed to forget myself. Point number one. Point number two, I got identified with something which I am not. Two mistakes. Mistake number one, I forgot myself. Mistake number two, I got identified with someone who I am not. Yes or no? Yes. Suppose by some means this identification is cut off, then you will find that the movie happenings are not going to affect you at all. For example, suppose I bring my 5-year-old child, say my son, with me. Now this son will keep on poking me. Father, who is this? Who is that? Etc. Then this identification will not be complete. Will I be affected by the movie? No. Or suppose my mobile keeps ringing every other minute. Again, the identification will be disrupted, and thus the movie will not be able to affect me. So this is one point to be kept in mind. If the identification is cut off, the movie cannot affect me at all. Now, let us keep this example aside. Let us come to what Upanishad says. Now, what is the lesson to be learned from the movie theater? The lesson to be learned is, there are two entities, the real, none other than the person who is watching the movie, the real, the unreal, the movie character. So what happens in the movie theater? The real identifying with the unreal and going through the problems of the unreal. Yes or no? The real identifying with the unreal, and now he is going through the ups and downs of the unreal. Really speaking, person alone is true, the movie is absolutely unreal. But now what is this real person experiencing? He is experiencing the misery of the unreal. And the mistake he has committed is identification. Now coming to the Upanishads. What does the Upanishad say? The Upanishads also define the real and the unreal. Consciousness is real, matter is unreal. This consciousness matter pair through different names. It is called, sometimes it is called Brahman, Maya. Brahman is consciousness, Maya is matter. Sometimes it is called Purushaha Prakritihi. Consciousness is called as Purushaha, matter is called Prakritihi. Sometimes it is called Kshetrajnaha, Kshetraha. Sometimes it is called Drik, Drishyaha. In Prashnopanishad, it is called Pranaha, Rai. This pair is always seen. Now, what is the nature of matter? Matter constitutes of 5 elements. What are they? Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Jala, Prithvi. Space, air, fire, water, earth. 5 elements. They are insentient. They are jada. So now the Upanishad classifies these into 2. Consciousness and matter. Now what all things come under matter? The whole world which we see, is it consciousness or matter? It is matter, because it is made of 5 elements. So negate the entire world. Now what about this body? Is it consciousness or matter? It is again matter, because this body is nourished by food. Food is nothing but 5 elements. Therefore this body also is matter. What about the mind? Now here comes the confusion. Mind is also nourished by food. In one of the Upanishads, this is proved to the Shishya, to the disciple, by the Guru. How? So there was a bright student who had all these verses of the Vedas by heart. So then this disciple is asked to fast for 15 days. So this disciple fasts for 15 days and then he comes after 15 days, and now the teacher asks, now repeat these mantras which you had by hearted earlier. And it is found that this disciple is not able to repeat it. His mind is absolutely blank. So thus the teacher proves the student that even the mind is nourished by food, therefore mind also is made up of matter. Now there is only one thing which is not matter now, it is consciousness, or called as awareness, which we experience every moment. Now what is the nature of consciousness? It is infinite, it is immortal, it is all pervading, something which is ever with us. It can never be denied. Now this is the nature of consciousness. It is infinite, it is immortal, it is our own nature, it is of the nature of bliss. Now what is the mistake we have done? I, the pure consciousness, has done one mistake. The mistake is I have identified myself with the body-mind complex. Here comes the misery. Remember the example. What is the mistake I have done in the movie theater? I have got identified with the characters of the movie. In the same way, in this world I have done a big mistake. I, the pure consciousness, is divine, is perfect, is infinite. But the moment I identify with the body, with the mind, all the imperfections of the body becomes as though my imperfection. It is due to the mistake called identification. Body has got 6 modifications. Asti, Jayate, Vardhate, Viparinamate, Apakshiyate, Vinashyate. It exists, it is born, it grows, it matures, it decays and dies. This is the biography of all the bodies, physical bodies. Now what is the mistake I have done? I got identified with the body, and now the imperfections of the body becomes as though my imperfection. Thus comes this date of birth and date of death. It is actually the date of birth of the body. When the body is sick, what do I feel? I don't say my body is sick, I say I am sick. When the body is old, what do I say? I am old. When the mind is miserable, what do I say? I am miserable. Now see the mistake we have done. The instrument's properties become as though my property. So what is sadhana according to spirituality, according to Upanishad? Sadhana is disidentification from your matter envelopments. The moment you disidentify yourself, you come to know yourself as Sat Chit Anand, as perfect. And this is what is called as liberation. Now we have to see what are the characteristics of this consciousness. How the Upanishads describe this consciousness as. Because this is me, the pure consciousness. So what do the scriptures talk about it? Consciousness is defined as Sat. Sat means existence, absolute existence, independent existence. Sat. What does it mean? My nature is existence. There cannot be any non-existence for me. But now, because of identification with the body, what is my notion about myself? At present I am existing. When the body dies, I will also die. Yes or no? Yes. See the problem. Properties of the body as though become my property. Sat. Next one is Chit. Chit means consciousness. Chit also means Chaitanya, the sentient principle. So this consciousness is that which enlivens the body. Now in our wrong notion we think that because I am breathing, I am alive. But the Upanishads say, na pranena na apanena martyo jivanti kasyana itarena tu jivanti yasmin etau upasritau. It is not because you are breathing in and out that you are alive. It is because of the presence of something else that because of which you are breathing. That presence is the presence of consciousness. Shrotrasya shrotam manaso manoyat vachoha vacham sa upranasya pranaha. It is the ear of the ear, the eye of the eye, the mind of the mind, the prana of the prana. Meaning what? Your ears are functioning because of its presence. Your eyes are functioning because of its presence. Every activity in the body is taking place because of its presence. It is the very life-giving principle in you. Just like the electricity for the bulbs, for the fans, for the refrigerators, etc. Yena rupam rasam gandham shabdan sparshanscha maithunan etenaiva vijanati kimatra parishishyate. That consciousness is the very life-giving principle in us. This consciousness is called God. So it is Chit, sentient principle. Now it is Anand. What is Anand? Happiness, bliss. Now, can happiness be a burden to you? Sorrow can be a burden to you, but can happiness be a burden to you? It can never be a burden to you because it is your nature. Whichever is your nature can never be a burden to you. Just like the heat is the nature of fire, just like sweetness is the nature of sugar, in the same way happiness is my nature. I don't have to acquire it from others, I just have to know this truth. And the only obstruction is the mind. So the Upanishads say, purify the mind and then know yourself to be of the nature of infinite bliss. The sadhana to be done is purification of mind. So Upanishads emphasize that only a person with a pure heart can know this truth. Na virato duscharitat, na shanto na samahitah, na shantamanaso vapi prajnanenainam apnuyat. A person who is following all kinds of immoral ways, crooked ways, such a person can never know this truth at all. Sat, Chit, Anandaha, and now it is Anantaha. Ananta means infinite. This is our nature. We are infinite by nature. But what is the mistake I have done? I have got identified with the body. Now instead of experiencing infinite, what am I experiencing now? Finitude. Because body is finite. Whatever you identify with, the property of that thing becomes as though property of yours. Body is finite. Now because of your identification with the body, you experience finitude. Mind is also finite. You experience finitude. All the efforts you put forth to come out of this finitude, to come out of this cage of finitude, is called samsara, sufferings of life. So the Upanishads say the only way in which your sorrows can end is by knowing this truth that you are pure consciousness. Anantaha, that which is infinite necessarily has to be achalaha, unmoving. It is nityaha, it is eternal. Now remember, these are the characteristics of consciousness. Characteristics of consciousness means what? It is my nature, it is me. Nityaha. Another term used is kutastaha. Like an anvil, this consciousness stays. Now I hope you have seen the anvil of this, say, ironsmith, etc. So hot iron is beaten to shape by keeping it on the anvil, isn't it? The iron, etc. change shape, but does the anvil change shape? No. It becomes a substratum, it becomes a support for all the changes to take place. In the same way, keeping this consciousness as support, all the others keep changing. The body keeps changing, the mind keeps changing, the intellect keeps changing, holding on to a changeless substratum called consciousness. Kutasthaha. Consciousness is also defined as sakshi. It's the witness. It is the ultimate witness which cannot be witnessed. Sakshi, sakshat ikshate, the one who directly sees. He doesn't need the presence of an eye to see. It sees everything. Witness. It is called as avasthatraya sakshi, the witness of all the three states. So in life we experience the three states. What are the three states? Waking state, dream state, deep sleep state. This sakshi just witnesses all the state. So in the waking state we are aware. That light of consciousness because of which we are aware of everything, that consciousness is the truth. That consciousness we are experiencing every moment. In the dream state, is there the consciousness present? It is there. You are aware of the dream. That light of awareness is the truth. What about deep sleep? Is this consciousness present? The scriptures give the logic. Yes, it is present. How do they prove this fact? What is my experience in deep sleep? I know nothing. I slept well. This is the statement we make after deep sleep, isn't it? I knew nothing. Now, if you have known nothing, there has to be a presence of a knower, an experiencer. That ultimate experiencer is this consciousness. I slept well. Now, how did you gain that experience that you have slept well? You gain this experience because there was an ultimate experiencer, a witness. This witness is this consciousness. Avasthatraya sakshi. Now this consciousness, can I know through my senses, through my eyes, ears, etc.? Just as I know this world, can I use these senses to know this consciousness? Upanishad said, no, it is not possible. It is not possible. So the term used is agocharaha. That which cannot be known through the senses. So Puja Gurudev used to give the example of a torch and a battery. In a dark room, you can see everything in the room with the light of the torch, but there is one thing which you can never see. What is that? The cell, the battery. The moment you put the battery in, light is there, but the battery is in. The moment you take out the battery, light is gone, but the battery is out. So you are not able to see it. So in the same way, it is because of this consciousness that all your senses work. With that sense, you can never know this consciousness. Agocharaha. So okay, senses cannot grasp it. Can the mind grasp it? Sorry, achintyaha. It cannot be thought of. Now look at that verse. Yen manasana manute yenahur manomatam tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. Yen manasana manute yenahur manomatam. That which cannot be grasped by the mind, but that because of which the mind can be grasped. What does it mean? It means you cannot think of consciousness, but you can be aware of thoughts. The rule of the game says that which is subtle can grasp the gross, but the gross cannot grasp the subtle. The subtle can grasp the gross, but the gross cannot grasp the subtle. Consciousness is the ultimately what you call sukshmati sukshma, extremely sukshma, extremely subtle thing, this consciousness cannot be thought of. But you can be aware of the thoughts. Just close your eyes and you will find the thoughts coming and going, isn't it? How do you know that the thoughts are present? You know it because of the light of awareness. This awareness is God. Pratibodha viditam matam amritattvam hi vindate. The moment you start paying attention to this awareness because of which you are aware of the thoughts, the moment you pay attention to this consciousness, Upanishad says, amritattvam vindate, you attain immortality because awareness is immortal. So what is it that we are supposed to do at the seat of meditation? At the seat of meditation, we are supposed to use these pointers. Sat, Chit, Anand, Anand, Achala, Sakshi, etc. These are the pointers given by the Upanishad. Use these pointers and now meditate upon these pointers. Use these pointers and go towards the pointed. Don't get trapped by the words. So at the seat of meditation, what are you supposed to do? When you close your eyes and sit, you will find the thoughts. Now where should your attention be? Upon the thoughts or the awareness? It should be upon the awareness. If your attention is upon the thoughts, you will find your mind wandering, and you also will wander along with the thoughts. This is called vikshepa. At the seat of meditation, these are the two major problems experienced by all. One is layaha, sleep. In 5 minutes you go to sleep. The second is vikshepa. You start wandering and you are not even aware that you are wandering. What is the mistake you have done? The mistake is you have ignored this consciousness, the truth, God. And now your attention is upon the thoughts. Now attention is upon the thought means attention is upon the world. Attention is upon the thought means you are ignoring God, which is consciousness. The moment your attention is upon the thoughts, you are a samsari. The moment your attention is upon this consciousness, you are a sannyasi. Sannyasi doesn't mean wearing this dress. No. Your test whether you are a sannyasi or a samsari, this test is in your meditation. At the meditation, are you able to handle your mind, fix the mind upon the self, then you are a sannyasi. If you are able to hold on to this consciousness, it means, Bhagavan, I want you, I don't want this world. This is the meaning, this is the indication. Only a mature person can hold on to this consciousness. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha namedhaya na bahuna sutena yamaivesha vrunute tena labhyaha tasyesha atma vivrunute tanum swam. This self cannot be known by lot of lectures, by lot of reading. No. By scholarship, no. Only the one who has chosen him, he alone will get it. Now what do you mean choosing God, choosing the self, choosing consciousness? This is what you have to do at the seat of meditation. Can you pay attention to this consciousness? Can you remain as a witness, holding on to this awareness? Then you are real sannyasi, you are a perfect student, perfect Upanishadic student, the most qualified. In order to hold on to this consciousness, you need two qualities. Number one, vairagya, your ability to withdraw your mind from the world. And number two, viveka plus bhakti. You must have that right understanding what is real, what is unreal. And also, you must have love for the real. If you have viveka and bhakti, you can hold on to this truth. Our Gurudev used to say, the essential message of Vedanta is this: detach, attach. What is detach, attach? Detach from the world, attach to the Lord. This is the truth. So our test, whether we are real seekers or not, we are tested at the seat of meditation. We are infinite, we are immortal. It is our nature. No one can take it away from us except we ourselves. But if you ignore this truth, Upanishads warns us, mrityo samrityam gacchati, ya iha naneva pashyati. The person goes from death to death. In Bhajagovindam it is called punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. If you ignore this truth, you have to pay a heavy price for it. And that is rebirth. But suppose the one who holds on to this truth, iha cheda vedit ata satyamasti, nachet iha vedit mahati vinashtihi. If you ignore this truth, it is a great loss. Such a wonderful opportunity has been given by the Lord to realize the self, to become one with God, to know your divine nature, and now you have misused it. So the Upanishad says, alas. So therefore, uttishtata, jagrata, prapyavaran, nibodhata. Arise, awake. Know your true nature. Approach the wise, the learned ones, the masters. Fall at their feet, serve them, and then gain this knowledge. This is what the Upanishads say. Pujya Gurudev believed that only when individuals are transformed, then alone the nation can be transformed. You may make hundreds and thousands of policies at the national level, but if individuals are selfish, narrow, then that nation can never can progress. Upanishad gives the vision of oneness. We are all one. We are all consciousness with different matter envelopments. Ultimately, the essence is one. Upanishad points out that truth in us, and thus it gives the vision of oneness. Unfortunately, our educational system has totally neglected this knowledge of the Upanishad. That is why we have so many problems in the society. This knowledge has been ignored. The effort of Chinmaya Mission and the vision of Pujya Gurudev is to inculcate these values, this highest knowledge, which alone can bring the whole world into one family. If there is peace, harmony, etc. lacking in this world, it is because this knowledge has been ignored. In this regard, the Chinmaya Mission has been formed to spread this knowledge in a way which common person also can understand, and thus they can transform their life and thus be a blessing to the entire society. I sincerely invoke the grace of the Lord and the blessings of the entire Guru Parampara. May we imbibe these teachings of the scriptures. May we live it, may we get transformed, and thus be a role model for the future generations to come. Hari Om. Thank you.
Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan and ISKCON are highly grateful to Brahmachari Sujai Chaitanya ji for giving an excellent exposition of Gurudev Chinmaya's interpretation of Upanishads. It's an ocean, and it's very, very difficult to sum up the entire ocean in 30 minutes, which you have given. And I crave the indulgence because the time is the devourer. Kalaya tasmai namaha and kalo jagat bhakshakaha, as the tradition would have it. Really, he gave the two classic examples from Chinmaya Gurudev's contribution of movie theatre, which has got a direct relevance to Chitradeepa Prakarana, which is one of the important chapters of Panchadashi written by Vidyaranya. Secondly, he talked about the torch example, and that is another classic which one can never ignore easily. And Brahmachari Chaitanya ji has also talked about the concept of sannyasa. What exactly is the role of sannyasa? And Kulluka Bhatta, while commenting on the 332nd verse of 9th chapter of Manusmriti, says, Ahankara mamakara tyaga eva sannyasa natu kashaya vasaha. So that particular aspect has also been ably touched by Brahmachari Sujai Chaitanya ji. And the concept of consciousness which he touched is so glorious, because what is consciousness, as Chinmaya ji himself puts it while commenting on Mandukya Karika, when individual consciousness merges with universal consciousness, what remains is only consciousness, which one should not even be conscious of. So that aspect has been ably covered by Sujai Chaitanya ji here, and we request Shri Sakala Narsimha Garu to kindly do the honoring for Sujai Chaitanya ji. Sakala Narsimha Garu is a very great philanthropist, which he would not like if I mention, because my fourth book, 1994 September 4th, was sponsored by him.
यागेनैके
अमृतत्वमानशुः परेण नाकं निहितं गुहायां विभ्राजते यतयो विशन्ति वेदान्तविज्ञानसुनिश्चितार्थ न्यासयोगाद्यतयः शुद्धसत्त्वाः ते ब्रह्मलोके तु परान्तकाले परामृतात् परिमुच्यन्ति सर्वे दह्रं विपापं परमेष्वभूतं यत्पुण्डरीकं पुरमद्य सग्गस्तं तत्रापि दह्रं गगनं विशोकस्तस्मिन् यदन्तस्तदुपासितव्यं यो वेदादौ स्वरप्रोक्तो वेदान्ते च प्रतिष्ठितः तस्य प्रकृतिलीनस्य यः परः स महेश्वरः. We are highly grateful to Sakala Narasimhalu Garu for having come to this function on time. He is one of the well-wishers of Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, and he is a great patron who never wants to be recognized in public because he does everything very silently.